Polish, so he translated for him. And he told us that if there is any shooting in the town by any civilian against German troops that were occupying the city, we would be all executed. We were considered hostages, and we would be executed if there is any shooting. And then he turned around and walked away. We were obviously kind of distressed by that prospect. Fortunately, nothing happened. There was no shooting. And after a couple of hours, we were let go, and I found myself back home. My sister was glad to see me, and that was the end of that experience.
Wow.
September 15th, but I'll never forget it.
Oh, yes.
Well, Warsaw was still fighting, and the front became right in front of our house. The garden where we had our shelter became locations where Germans put up some field artillery guns to shoot into Warsaw, some machine gun emplacements, and it was going on both sides of our garden, on and on. And there was a continuous bombardment from those artillery guns into the city. And another day passed on. We still didn't have any food. We heard some rumor from some civilian who told us that in the no man's land between the German lines and Polish lines, there was an area of maybe 3 miles or so. There were fields, potato fields, and September is the harvest month for potatoes in Poland. And that if somebody is daring enough and crawls through the front lines, could pick up some potatoes and bring it back. And in fact, increasing number of civilians started to crawl through the German front line into this no man's land and picking up whatever potatoes they could. And my brother-in-law and I, he was about 30 at the time, I was 17, we were crawling on our elbows and our knees, holding our heads down. The artillery shells were flying over us, and we were crawling into this no man's land, into the fields, and grabbing as many potatoes as we could into a sack, and then bringing it back across the front line again. And we were doing it, once we discovered that we could do it, we were trying to do it just about once or twice or 3 times a day, trying to accumulate as many potatoes as we could for the winter, whatever will happen. I might say that while we were doing it, at that time, it never occurred to us that really those potatoes were planted by some Polish farmers that owned this land, and they planted the potatoes, and they expected to harvest it. We were just desperate to get it, and we were not worried about who owned it or whatever was right or wrong at that point. We were just wanted to survive. A few days later, we heard a rumor that the Soviet army started moving into the eastern Poland, and that was on September maybe 18 or thereabouts, under the secret agreement that they had with Germany. They started occupying the eastern part of Poland. And if you look at map 3...
Sir, what year is this?
39.
39, okay.
39, yeah. If you look at map 3, that shows actually the official signing of the agreement between Ribbentrop, who was German foreign minister, and Molotov, who was Soviet foreign minister, in Moscow on September 29, 1939, where they officially established a line of demarcation between the German-occupied zone and the Soviet-occupied zone. And as it turned out, the boundary was about 100 miles east of Warsaw. Our concern, and my father's concern particularly, was that if you look at map 1, that if the agreement would call for the Soviets to occupy the area up to the Vistula River, then both our locations in the suburbs would become part of the Soviet territory. So my father was very concerned about it. As it happened then, the boundary was further east, and the formal agreement was signed on September 29. On September 30th, Polish army surrendered, and Warsaw was occupied by the German troops. The fighting stopped at that point, and the war in the east in 1939 ended. If you look at map 4, it indicates the arrangements after the end of hostilities, and it shows the portion of Poland that became occupied by the Soviet Union, and then everything to the west of that was occupied by Germany. What is significant that Germany declared the portion of Poland that was part of Germany before the First World War, they declared that again part of Germany. So that the city of Poznan, that I mark here in green, that if you look at map 2 was part of Poland, now it became part of Germany. And as it became part of Germany, it was outside of the military occupation area. It just became part of country. The occupied part of Poland was only Warsaw and the area south of it, as shown on this map, and it was under German military government, while all the area to the west became just incorporated in the German administration, period. Now, fighting ended, but the situation for civilians was still the same. We still didn't have any food except for whatever we managed to get, as I was describing. Also, we were running out of money because obviously my brother-in-law, the Ministry of Forestry that he was worked at was inoperative. He was not getting any paychecks in the mail. Banks were closed. So whatever we happened to have as we got back from vacation, that's all we had. And food, the only way we could get some food would be by either exchanging some goods for food with farmers, or otherwise to pay exorbitant prices on the black market, and you had to again pay money for it. The money was still Polish zloty. It was both in the German-occupied portion around Warsaw in south, and in the Soviet-occupied zone, the currency that was officially used was still original Polish currency, the zloty. In the portion that was absorbed into Germany, their currency, of course, became the German D-mark, mark. as the fighting ended, one of the first things I did is, if you go back to map 1, I walked, and that's the only way to transport yourself is by walking. I walked from Rembertov to Barbach, where my father lived, to check on what happened to him. And it's I don't know, maybe an hour and a half walk through the woods, it was not too bad. And I got to his apartment and discovered that he was not there. The apartment was empty. And I talked to the neighbor there, and he told me that my father, still while the fighting was going on, he was afraid that the Soviet Union troops would occupy Poland all the way up to Vistula River, and that he would in effect be taken by the Soviets. He somehow obtained a horse, bought a horse and a cart, and loaded his belongings on the cart, and he, his wife, my stepmother, and the little boy, my stepbrother, on that cart, they just left Barbara and started moving west, across the river and west, away from post-Soviet occupation. And that's all I knew at that point. A day or two later, I went to Warsaw, and again, no trains, no streetcars, no nothing. So the way you go to Warsaw, you walk, and it was a good, maybe 3-hour walk from Rembertov, where I lived, all the way to central Warsaw. And I wanted to check on my gymnasium. I wanted to see whether the school opened, whether I was starting my senior year. I got to the building, which was still standing, undamaged, but there was a sign on the door saying that under the order of German military government, all schools in Poland were closed indefinitely.